Having just ended a 4.5-year stint as publisher of the Chicago Reader, a publication she joined just 2 days before then-owner Chicago Sun-Times had planned to shutter it. Since then, she's transitioned the Reader to nonprofit status, with more than 35% of its operating funds now coming from non-advertising sources. And now as she takes her victory lap, the Reader is on a much surer footing and well on its way to recovery. This wasn't her first trip to the publishing rodeo, however. She's the past publisher and managing editor of Chicago's oldest and only LGBTQ+ newspaper, Windy City Times, a paper she co-founded in 1985. Currently, she's the majority owner and the board president. Please join me and publisher, author, LGBTQ+ rights agency stalwart, and my good friend and sister, the one and only Tracy Baim, in the arena right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
There's that smile, Tracy Baim. Hi, my friend.
Hello.
So here is a quick story or a reminder for us. I've known of you. You're Tracy Baim. You have a reputation. You know that. You're a bit legendary in the LGBTQ+ community, of which I'm a part. You're legendary in Chicago. You're legendary in publishing. You're a fireball of energy. I was aware of all of that, but I had never met you. I was aware of the work, I was reading the Reader, and I was at an event, what's it, the Executive Club?
Executive Club.
And the CEO and president of PBS was there. I sat down at the table, and I felt an energy that was just, we already knew each other, and you said, and you went, I've been looking to meet you. Hi. And I'm like, hi. And remember we sat there and you went, you look like, oh, I can't even remember his name.
The actor.
The
yes,
actor.
from
And then
New
you
Zealand.
went, let me find this picture. It's your hair, it's your hair. And immediately I was like, oh, I adore her. And like we literally, I said to you, I've been trying to reach you because I've been following you. And you're like, I've got this going on. I'm trying to do a graceful handoff. We're in the final stages. And you said to me, as soon as things calm down, I want to get together, let's connect. You were very supportive of the work. And I said to you that I want you on the show. And you're like, absolutely. Just let me handle these things. We'll do it. You invited me to the 50-ish, which was a fantastic party. And then you're here. So I thank you for that because you were lovely. And it's nice when you meet people. You know how this city and others work. You meet people. You've heard about them, and then you meet them, and you go, oh. And then I met you, I was like, oh, it's even better. Yay.
Thank you.
So let's begin with I am a fan in real time. But let's go back to the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born in a Chicago hospital on the north side in 1963. My parents actually lived in Highland Park at the time, but I was born in the city. And then when my parents divorced, when I was around 5 years old, my mom moved us into the city.
Okay. Tell me first about the woman and the man who raised you.
My mother, Joy Darrow, was also like an incredible role model for me. I feel like I grew up in a place where I had a mom who was a mom. She was absentee a lot, but for me that was fine. And she was also a role model in journalism. It's something that not my siblings, but I chose. So I was really fortunate enough. I mean, she would take me down to protest. She was covering the Bud Billiken parade. She'd take me with her. She was doing layout for the Chicago Defender at their plant in Cal City, and she would take me with her when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And then I had my stepfather came into our lives when I was a little bit, 7 or 8 years old. He worked at the Chicago Tribune, which is where my parents met. And he too was an incredible role model for me. My birth father was a photographer, so I kind of had media type things in my blood and in my environment, and feel very fortunate that I got to continue doing that as a career.
Nice. Siblings?
I have one sister who's 2 years older, who I actually live with our birth father, and a brother who's 1 year younger, who's lived in England since the late 80s, working on psychodrama especially for violent prisoners. I got to see him teach a group of violent rapists and murderers and prison guards in South Africa in 2006. And it was unbelievable to watch him at work, where he used theater and drama as a way for both the prisoners and the guards to cope with trauma in their lives.
That resonates with me deeply. You know, I'm sure you feel similar, the power of expression, the power, you know, people always talk about arts and culture and storytelling as if it's a luxury item. It's the connective tissue. And for anyone who's experienced trauma, and most of us have if we're more than a week old, it is such, the power that it's had in my own life, I know the value of it. And what your brother is doing, my goodness. That's because I'm sure those breakthroughs and those cathartic moments and people being able to own their stories and talk through it and work through it is powerful.
Yeah, so I have really two wonderful siblings. Okay. My sister's been extremely supportive of me over the last, my whole career, but also
she's your roomie.
She's my roomie, and the last 4.5 years really has been, she's seen me and helped me navigate the difficulty of the work. So I'm really lucky to have those two siblings.
Love that. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Lane Tech High School, which is what it was called then.
Okay.
It was wonderful. We had shop, and so I was able to take print shop and woodworking. I wasn't so good at electric, but it was really great. Now, we weren't really wanted there because I was like, I think the third or fourth girls class. It had been an all-boys school. And what's funny is it was more the teachers. Some of the teachers, the women teachers, didn't want us there. They saw us kind of as a distraction. Some of them were great, but some of the teachers were not. And some of the male teachers didn't know how to not harass students. My sister had gone there actually her first year and was kind of harassed by one of the drafting teachers, and my mom had to come in and say something to them. So it was a wonderful school for me. It was very, the shop part of it was great, and they had, I worked on yearbook, newspaper, all that kind of stuff. So for me, the training I got in print shop actually helped me pay for my college. I learned how to use these new computer typesetting machines before the older generation of typesetters people learned them. So when I went to college, I was able to work night shifts teaching the older typesetters how to use these new typesetting equipment. So timing was great for me on those machines.
Divine. Yeah. Where'd you attend college?
I went to Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Okay. I wanted to be a little bit farther than my parents would drive to see me on the weekend, so it's about 7 hours. They never visited.
Strategy was playing.
They wanted me to go to Northwestern.
Of course they did. You're like, no.
7 hours. They came, dropped me off, and then they came for graduation.
They had to make a choice to come. Oh, wow. Yeah. I love that.
But it was a good journalism school for news editorial journalism at the time. Okay. And I wanted to go to a relatively small school, and they lied to me and said they had a women's soccer team, and they did not. So I made them allow me to play on the men's team the first year, and then I started a women's team, club team, the second year. So really, I was going for the soccer, and they lied. So I had to start it.
I told them I was going for media. I was really going for soccer. I was lied to, so I played with the boys, and then I started one.
Exactly.
Okay, again, one of the things I love about this opportunity here, this privilege I get to have, when you talk to folks who are well-known and well worth knowing, you start to see patterns. And one of those is journalism comes to you naturally. Like you own it and earn it honestly. The other thing that seems to come to you honestly, creating a soccer team after playing for the boys team, an openly gay journalist in '84, and I graduated high school in '85, so I know what I can remember the world. But being a pioneer, being a journalist, but you got them both honestly. And I want to talk about the pioneer piece because your mom, Joy, who everyone will understand. I have such an affinity for your mom, just through your description and her legacy. But tell me about your mom, this beautiful, white, blonde-haired mom of yours, worked for the Chicago Defender for a decade?
Yeah, freelanced even before and after that. Okay. So in the 1960s, when my mom worked for various papers in the suburbs, she went and covered Martin Luther King marches in the South. I found recently her coverage of the Birmingham March in a suburban newspaper. And then when she was at the Chicago Tribune, she tried to cover hard news, but they really wanted women to cover the social beat. So she left, and she did various odd things. But she worked for the United Mortgage Brokers of America, which was Dempsey Travis's group of black mortgage brokers who were fighting redlining. So she was really into urban planning and helped in Gary and in Chicago on those issues. And then she worked on Autobiography of Black Chicago with Dempsey Travis. She's thanked in the credits. And through her relationship with Dempsey Travis, she met John Senstack at the Chicago Defender. So when he was publisher, she became managing editor kind of in the mid-1970s. She was there by 73, actually, because when I was 10, I had a kids' consumer column in there. Really silly. It's in their archives.
Listen, it's in the family paper. It's not silly.
Yeah.
Go on.
So she was there about a decade, and then she freelanced and did other things as well. They even had a section called Joy for a while that was named after her.
In the Defender.
In the Chicago Defender. So she really intimately cared about issues of racism, just inherently. She also was a distant relative of Clarence Darrow, so some of it was connected to she wanted to continue that legacy. And when she passed away, I joined this Clarence Darrow committee that exists still today, that on the anniversary of his death every March 13th, we honor Darrow. So she just cared about these issues deeply. She happened to work in cover issues that then she later became more activist in.
But it wasn't performative.
Oh,
No.
No.
So I want to look through your eyes. I'm going to start looking through your eyes during that time. You are how old about-ish?
Well, when she started the Defender, I was probably around 10.
Yeah. So you're watching this, your mom, at a place where most people would look and go, one of these things is not like the other. So I have to assume, and we've discussed, there's going to be people who are going to have opinions. I look at this now in 2023 and go, wow, I wish I could know her, but I get to know her through you. But in that moment, sometimes we look at history on the other end and go, oh, how wonderful. But in that moment, I can't imagine that everybody on either side were thrilled about your mom being the managing editor of the Defender, and how much of that you watch, how much of watching her that you go, this is different and I'm so proud of her, or I know something about what she's doing is pioneering. It's different. It's not. How much of that were you aware of, and how much of any backlash that you get to see firsthand?
Well, I was extremely aware because I would go with her to work. And I also could see the difference between the Tribune offices and the Defender offices.
Fair enough.
So I was very proud. I mean, I was super, super proud of my mother and what she was doing. We lived in an area that was 99% black, and so most of their friends were very integrated. All the parties they had at our house, friends in the neighborhood and everything it was very mixed. Some Latino, but mostly African American. So I knew from very early age, probably 7 or 8, when we moved into the city and started to have friends, and my parents had friends in the city, and my stepfather, how welcoming and diverse their group of friends were, and a lot of gay people too were around. Okay. So the backlash I was aware of came a little bit later in my teens, when we would receive, really racist letters from white people questioning why a white person would be a race traitor working on black issues. Never do I ever recall any backlash from the black community about having a white person doing it. I think because she came in with credentials, that she had worked on redlining and covered King, and she'd been there. She showed up, people, they talk in this town, and so I feel like she was really accepted.
And they talk in our community. We've had this conversation. I had a guest on here, Michael Charles, who moved here from Australia, and it was the jazz community that took him in. And what we tend to, I can speak from my experience, when a Joy steps into our world, we go, but then we know Joy's family. That's Joy. Yeah. Joy is like, she's our blue-eyed blonde, but that's Joy. Yeah. Because, and it's sort of what we're still doing to this day, and I think you're still doing. Representation matters, but he, she, or they who will get under the tent, we got to make room, because Joy could get in the spaces, and Joy had the credentials and could write about redlining and bring a different perspective to it. So your mom is fascinating to me, and I wonder, we'll talk more later, are you going to write a book about her and your father's? But let me stay focused. So I do want to, you and I, about 30 minutes into our conversation, I was on a path which was Tracy and this and your mom, and then you told me about, you peeled back and you told my mom, like, oh, you make sense to me. But then you share it with me about 30 minutes in, something that happened to you and your family in 1978 when you were 15. So share with me what happened and how that in the immediate impacted you and your family.
So on the Memorial Day, 1978, an intruder came into our home. We found out later that he had just robbed another home, and that the police were in the neighborhood looking for him. So it might have been he just ducked into our home. My dad had just let our dog out. So it was early morning, but it wasn't a work day. So he came back in, my stepfather came back in, and somehow this guy got in, and he came up to my room. My sister was actually staying with a friend. We were very thankful later.
Sure.
Actually, my room was very tiny, and I had a staircase topper next to me, so I was sleeping on the floor because it was blistering hot, and next to a window. So it was a very small little contained space. But he came in and woke me up. It was around 5:30 in the morning, and he had a knife, and he started to stab me and tried to sexually assault me. And I was screaming, bloody murder. My brother was down the hall, and he fortunately did not, he was younger than me. He was smart. He went and got the neighbors, woke my stepdad and mom up, and then went and got the neighbors across the street. They had heard me screaming as well. So he got out. So I was grateful he didn't try to save me or anything.
Okay.
But my stepfather and my mother did come up and try to stop him. And he fled and stabbed my dad 27 times. My mom stabbed a bunch. I jumped on his back trying to grab the knife, and I was stabbed a few times before and after, and I threw a Stridex bottle at him. We were just doing anything to get him out. He jumped out of a window and was found a couple blocks away. And they brought him by the house for me to identify him. And they did, and his wallet fell out of his pants in my room, so there was no doubt. We did not have to testify, and he pled guilty. I don't even want to say his name. I know his name. It's embedded in me. The whole scene is embedded in me.
Yeah.
But the thing was this. So he was African American. He lived about 5 blocks from us. He knew the route because he had been a part-time postal carrier, it turned out. But he was just a bad dude. He'd been accused of throwing his girlfriend out on Lakeshore Drive the prior year. And ironically, my mother had covered that story. But because I had the framework of growing up in a diverse neighborhood and a diverse set of friends and parents' friends, there was never a moment where it was black and white for me. It was a bad dude. And unfortunately, people reacted badly. And that's when my mom started to get threatening letters at the Defender and at home saying she was a race traitor, and this is what your family gets for doing this. So that was the lesson to me, is that there are horrible people everywhere, and it had nothing to do with race. And I never really talked much to my mother about it, and our family, it's one of those traumas you just have to get through.
Yes.
But she told me she had experienced a very violent situation when she first moved to Chicago, and also happened to be black men, and that she never let that change who she was. So that was the only time we ever talked about it, was when she tried to tell me it doesn't have to change you. And it didn't change me. It made me a different person, but not based on that criteria. It just made me a more careful person. I mean, it was in my bedroom at home. It's not like you can prevent something like that.
Yeah.
But it just, it's something that could take you a different direction.
Absolutely.
And because of the family I had and the place in the world I did not take the bait.
Yeah.
That this was anything to do with race.
And I, for what it's worth, when you said this, and I told you I've since talked to my personal circle, because in this dash moment, where if anyone would go after that experience and now knowing now what happened to your mom, it changed me. But that you said you can sit here after that horrific, no one should deal with, but a 15-year-old. And that moment of your family all fighting for life, and thankfully your brother going to the neighbor. If anyone can go, look, I have a personal reason for not, and that you sit here and you said it to me then, that is the power of just one, human resiliency, but faith in others, and not letting the madness conflate definitions of things. So that is powerful, and it resonates with me, but it also explains so much of you to me. It's in those darkest moments. And it wasn't as simple as that. You tell me what happened in college where you made a choice.
I did. I'll go back a little bit too.
Okay.
I had a context of, at the time my incident had happened, I can't remember if it was before or after, there was an attack on a girl that was called Girl X, and it was in Cabrini Green Complex. And the way the media covered that was atrocious. She was either my age or younger even, and they were kind of blaming the victim. Like, why was she in this hallway? Why, it was just horrendous that she was being like accused of wanting that assault. So I saw the way the media could manipulate things and wanted to be in a better place, better world that would blame that victim, and I am an innocent victim, right?
Because both stories were widely covered.
Yeah, and they were very similar. My name was in media, which shouldn't have been. I was 15.
Oh my gosh.
My name was in the Tribune because my parents were in journalism. They thought, well,
That's okay.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Violate the child.
I really don't know why my name was in print, but it was. But when I was in college, I was probably 19. I was going through a big struggle related to coming out. I mean, I was out, but I didn't know if I could be a journalist and come out. I didn't know, there was a lot of worries. And I did try to commit suicide in college. And I fortunately had a really good poetry teacher at the time who, when I wrote about it after I was unsuccessful and was in the hospital for a week, my birth father came and stayed with me for a week in the hospital. I had written a poem about it, and my poetry teacher was closeted. I didn't know it, but he came out sort of to me he didn't say I'm gay. He said it gets better.
We know
believe it or not.
It
gets
know
better.
how we talk
way
to
before
yes.
Dan Savage
Come
ever
on.
did it. He said it gets better. By those three words, said to me he was gay, and then it was going to get better. And I didn't need anything else but to say to me, this is before and after. Your life is a before and after moment. The assault was before and after. An attempted suicide is before and after. Now it's your choice to be here. Make that choice work, and don't let anybody tell you can't do what you want to do.
And from that moment, you stepped in who you were, living out loud.
Yep.
Look what you've come into my house. I'm telling you, and I said I wouldn't do this, but it's one more reason why we have to give each other grace. And why we look at people and we look at you and we think we know you, because you, unlike many humans, there is a track record, a Google record. And we assume certain things. And we do not know the power of sitting with someone and going, let me not other you in any kind of way, either overestimate or under, and just look and go. And in that 30 minutes where you and I sort of did the pre-interview, and I went, well, my gosh, she's my sister. She's my, and I liked you. You were all, but it's these human connections where we find our connection, and that your mom is in the history of the Defender. And I'm connected to that from the Michigan Chronicle in Detroit. They were all a part. So, and that you are sitting here now, and they're looking at me, our floor manager, they're like, you need to go to a break. And I'm like, I just don't want to. But fine, I think I have to. We've got a lot more to cover. We are not done. Thank you. I'm just going to keep thanking you. Thank you, my friend. This is just the kind of pouring in that right now our community is just, we're craving this connection, this conversation. Bravo.
Thank you.
Listen, we'll be right back after this with 3 for the Road. Oh, my God.
Whoa.
The politics, the problems, and the people. Political Forum offers local legislators and political newsmakers an opportunity to participate in a one-on-one interview to discuss the most important political headlines in Chicago. Join us for Political Forum Wednesday at 7 p.m. on KNTV 19 and streaming at knTV.org. The world is watching Chicago. Chicago is watching Political Forum.
Tracy Baim, TB. I'm just going to come up with a nickname that shows adoration. T-Money. We'll find it. But let's continue with the final segment. This is the home stretch. It's a segment we call 3 for the Road. How it works, I ask you 3 questions. You give me 3 answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, good luck. I always wanted to be like Regis Philbin on Millionaire. Good luck. If you could have dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you choose and why?
Oh. One person, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. I think Harriet Tubman. I would want to find out just how did she gather that courage again and again and again. It's one time to do something once, but when you know how hard it is and all the risks to continue to do it. So I'd love to know, there's all myths and legends, right?
Yes.
Ida B. Wells would be second because she was a publisher, right?
Right.
So one of those two would
And
be
then somehow you would find a way, the pioneer in you, to get them both together and go,
Can she bring her?
We'll make it work. Just bring her in. Come on. Brilliant answer. I would love to be at that dinner. Second question. Do you have any regrets?
I really don't. I think I would do things different, but I think that's different than regrets. I had a series of 9 surgeries when I was 47 that almost killed me. The surgeries almost killed me. What I had did not. Okay. But stitches failed and all that. But I had to be in the hospital for 5 weeks, and it was a moment where I really was near death a few times. And when I came out of it, when I came out of the medication fog, I said to myself, if I had died, would have I had any regrets? And I was like, no. I actually did everything I knew to do, and I would do it different if I knew better, but I didn't know better. I would have been a better boss, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s, when I had no sleep. I was pretty horrible.
Present.
Till through the 90s, probably. I just had no
You
sleep.
said the whole 90s.
I think the whole 90s.
The decade.
Yeah. My girlfriend worked for me, my girlfriend of 28 years, worked for me during that era, and I don't even know how we stayed together. So I would get more sleep so that I would be a better boss.
Good. Great answer. Final question. One piece of advice present-day Tracy would have given her 21-year-old self.
Don't mortgage your parents' house for your dream newspaper.
Strategic and practical.
That is
okay.
one thing I would change.
Okay. Fair enough. Not a regret, but if Tracy could go back and talk to 21, she's like, don't do that. This feels fair. I have one more, because I can just cheat a little bit. Are you happy?
I am happy right now. I'm happy with the choice I made and the way I'm leaving the Reader in really good hands. I didn't just impulsively quit when it was really tough. I stuck it through a fight with a billionaire and converting it to nonprofit. At any point during that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I stuck it out, waited 8 months until they had the right person in place. So I am in a very happy place that the Reader's good, and I'm gonna, at age 60, I'm alive, and I'm going to be able to get to write again.
Come on, stepping forward with no regrets.
Yeah.
Tracy Baim, Sister Baim, TB. I'm going to come up with something. But Tracy, thank you for this. I did not know. I believe in divine order, not luck and happenstance. My life is a series of miracles. And right now, the privilege of sitting here and the opportunity to meet people, to meet them and then re-meet them is everything. Thank you for this. I assure you, as I sit here on behalf of Chicago, I thank you. I thank you for your fearlessness. I thank you for helping me to get the right to be married. I thank you for being your mother's child and your dad's, both of your dad's child. And I thank you for the choice you made in college to step out and be the example. Tracy and I, you know what's going to happen. We have to continue having a conversation. So we're going to do that on In the Arena Extra. You can watch it exclusively on CAN TV's bright, shiny new website, cantv.org. In the meantime, let me leave you with a final thought for the road, courtesy of Oprah Winfrey. There is no greater gift you can give or receive than to honor your calling. It's why you were born and how you become most truly alive. Until next time, take good care of you and each other. Good night. Is that not your quote, no? For you and Oprah. It's you and Oprah.
Hey, that's great. That's wonderful.
It was, my God. Oh, come here. Sis, oh, woman.